My life before I got to New Choices was just miserable. I was helpless, I was hopeless, I was in a terrible state of mind. I was extremely isolated over the last 10 years. I really had lost and gained and lost friendships, and the last 2 years before I came to New Choices, I had basically lost all my friends. I had lost the relationship I was in. I was on the verge of losing my apartment, and I had lost my job. And I didn't know that there was a solution. I really was in this alcoholic hell where I couldn't stop drinking, and I didn't want to drink because I got into trouble and drinking wasn't working for me. And drinking was the only solution I really had. I would wake up in the morning and I'd be sober for 10 minutes and I'd be like, this is intolerable. I can't even bear all this fear and anger and resentment. And I was at this sort of jumping off place, and I didn't tell anybody the honest truth. Nobody knew what was happening in my life. So the people around me that were closest to me still thought I was working and still thought I was functioning. And they didn't know the extent. And I couldn't be honest with myself. I was incapable of being honest with what my situation was. And it was only through the grace of the therapist whom I had been seeing in New York that had strongly recommended I come down to New Choices. And it was because I just didn't know where else to turn or what else to do. It was why I came down to New Choices. It was just that I had one unit of willingness left. My existence was so unbearable that I just needed relief. The light started turning on when I came to New Choices and I started learning. The most important thing for me was to keep an open mind and listen. And I had come into here with such a broken man that people were saying there is a solution and there's a way to get better and a way to stop drinking and a way to be happy and peaceful and achieve some serenity in your life. And I didn't believe them at first. And it took other people and peers and counselors, specifically at New Choices here, that related to me and said, I've been where you are and I have a way out. New Choices stabilized me at first, and through the 30 days here, I learned how to live life. They taught me what it is to be a 30-year-old man and how to communicate effectively, how to ask for help. They gave me tools. I wasn't cured by any means after 30 days, but I left here hopeful. And I never will forget that hope because I was in a hopeless state of mind. And I didn't think that I was cut out for life. It had been so long. I was resigned to the fact that I couldn't really do life. I didn't have the tools. I was maladjusted to life. I was terrible with interpersonal relationships. I couldn't hold on to a job. I couldn't hold on to a relationship. I would be able to get these things and think I'm doing well. I even have a science degree. I had a great job at points in my life. I was working at a research institute in Manhattan, in New York. But I couldn't hold on to anything. And I kept drinking and my life would implode. And so I had lost hope. I didn't really think that was a dirty word to me. They would talk about love and hope and peace, and I wanted to vomit because even those words didn't sit well with me. I would physically get ill. I had spent so long avoiding my own thoughts. I couldn't sit still with my own thoughts. I would put on music or blast a podcast or drink, obviously, because I couldn't even really stand being alone in my own head. And through talking and getting therapy in New Choices, I left here hopeful. And then I continued the work. I did IOP, intensive outpatient, for 8 weeks after leaving New Choices. I did it with New Choices. And I continued to work on that hopes, and I did more intensive therapy, and I really dug down into what are the causes and conditions for why I feel this way. It really took looking inward. The great expression I know is that you have to turn your eyeballs 180 degrees and look inside. This is an inside job. What I learned in New Choices is that this is a disease, and I lost the power of choice, that the disease centers in my mind. It's in my brain, and I had no mechanism for vanishing these thoughts and these fears and these anger and these resentments. There was no way. They would pile up and I had nothing to do but to drink. I remember when I left New Choices, and I said the word love or hope or something like that. And I remember saying, oh, if Eric from 30 days before that had heard Eric now, he would throw up and be like, who's this guy talking about hope and love? That wasn't me. And now that's my guiding force in the universe. I just try to bring love and hope into what I do. It's really crazy. It's really crazy because I was really not doing good. I was in a lot of pain for a long time. And now I'm doing really well. What I'm most proud of in my recovery is keeping an open mind and listening to what New Choices had to tell me. The people, the friendships I made, the guidance that I received, particularly from my therapist. We did a mode of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy. And I got so close with my therapist even over just 30 days. And it took a lot of work, but she gave me the tools to look inward and uncover and discover what's really driving my behavior, because it was hidden to me, because I was incapable of being honest with myself. I was blaming other people, I was blaming the world. I was trying to control everything, and it wouldn't go my way, and I would drink about it because I didn't know how to cope with my own feelings. And so working with my therapist here at New Choices, I was able to write a letter to my 8-year-old self, and I remember reading that letter to her. And it was a transformational moment for me because I had come to terms with this thing that I'd been running from for a long time. And in that letter, I wrote that I was hugging my 8-year-old self and telling him it would be okay. And I think there's so much healing power in writing a letter and voicing it to another person and building trust with a therapist. And that was only through the environment here at New Choices that I felt comfortable. I felt like I could trust somebody. I had come from an environment that was the opposite. I didn't trust anybody. I knew I needed to talk about my feelings. I had this inclination in my life, in my addiction, that I needed to tell somebody what was happening with me, and I couldn't. I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't trust anybody. And it's a real testament to New Choices that the staff here is populated with addicts and alcoholics, and they'd been there, and they identified with me, and I identified with them. And it was some magical moments. It was like, oh, you did that too? Or, oh, you've been in that situation? Oh, you couldn't stop drinking either. You would do this or that behavior. And there's no therapy better for an alcoholic, for this alcoholic, than to talk to another alcoholic. And so the therapy and the communication and conversations I had with the staff here really gave me a chance. It was a launching board because, like I said, 30 days, I didn't heal, I couldn't cure myself, but it gave me the tools to a place that now, 7 months later, I find some real serenity and peace in my life. And when I do feel angry or fearful, I have a way to clear away that debris. I've made amends to the people I've hurt most in my life. My mother and I have this transformed relationship through the amends process. And I was only able to do that because I had gone to New Choices and became honest with myself. The people I met in New Choices, I'm still in touch with. They've become my fellowship. They've become the people I lean on and talk to and converse with. I'm on the phone every night. I have great relationships. I didn't know how to have a best friend. I didn't know how to show up for people. I was not a reliable friend. I was somebody that I would say I'd be there and I wouldn't, or I'd show up drunk, or I'd show up late. I was irresponsible. I was mean. I was egotistical. Those are things that I learned how to deal with through New Choices. And now I get to be a really good friend. And I get to show up for people. And I get to show up and do an interview and tell people that I know where you've been. And now, 7 months later, I'm happy. I didn't tell anybody I went to New Choices because I was afraid. I didn't want them to know who I was. I thought it was a real shameful act. And it turns out that it's the complete opposite. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of faith to do what I did and go to New Choices and seek help. I think real growth comes from acknowledging you have a problem and addressing it. And to shed the idea that there's any fear, you should have any fear or shame attached to this thing. It's really powerful to go and acknowledge your problem and go get help. And New Choices is the place to do it. I would tell the person still struggling with addiction that there is hope and that there is an answer. I didn't know that there was, and it caused me a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. And I got really lucky and really fortunate that I got into New Choices. It was not something on my radar. It was fate through the universe that I came here and found a solution. But to the person who's still struggling, there is a solution. And you don't have to feel this way forever. There's a way of living through New Choices that you can be free from addiction and free from that torment in your mind. And you'll learn how to cope and deal with your emotions and gain some serenity. That's all I want in my life, is to have some peace of mind. And I was really able to achieve that here.